I stood frozen in that hospital doorway, my hands gripping the frame so tight my knuckles went white. The smell hit me first, antiseptic mixed with something sterile and wrong. Then I saw him. My baby. My only son. Marcus lay there in that bed, pale as death itself, tubes snaking from his arms and throat, machines beeping around him like they were the only things keeping his soul from slipping away. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Mothers aren't supposed to see their children like this, hooked up to wires and pumps, fighting just to take the next breath. My legs wanted to give out right there, but something deeper kept me standing. Maybe it was rage. Maybe it was prayer. I don't know. What I did know was that my son had been here alone for 4 days. 4 days of struggling between life and death while I was back home in Alabama, clueless, thinking everything was fine because nobody called. Nobody told me my boy was dying. Would you have trusted your gut if something felt wrong? Would you have dropped everything and just gone? Tell me in the comments, because what I found out next turned my grief into something I didn't know I had in me. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The nurse behind me cleared her throat. Mrs. Cole, you can go sit with him. The doctor will be in shortly. I moved toward the bed like I was walking through water. Each step felt heavy, unreal. When I reached him, I took his hand. It was cold, limp. I squeezed it anyway, whispering through the tears already burning down my face. Mama's here, baby. Mama's here now. His chest rose and fell, but barely. The ventilator was doing most of the work. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him awake. But all I could do was sit there and stroke his hand, praying words I wasn't even sure made sense anymore. A doctor walked in, clipboard in hand, eyes tired behind his glasses. You must be his mother. I'm Dr. Patel. Yes, I managed. What happened to my son? Massive cardiac arrest, he said. He collapsed at home 4 days ago. A neighbor called 911. We've stabilized him, but the next 72 hours are critical. There's possible damage to the heart muscle. Where's his wife? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. Dr. Patel glanced at his clipboard. We've been trying to reach her since he was admitted. She's listed as his primary contact. We left multiple messages. She hasn't responded. I stared at him. She hasn't been here? No, ma'am. Not once. Something cold slid down my spine. Not once. 4 days, and she hadn't come. Hadn't called. Hadn't checked if her husband was alive or dead. The doctor left, and I pulled out my phone. My hands shook as I dialed Loretta's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. 3rd time, voicemail again. My heart pounded. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. I opened Facebook. I don't use it much, but I knew Loretta did. I went to her profile, and my breath caught. There it was. Posted 6 hours ago. A video. Loretta on a beach, hair blowing in the wind, a drink in her hand. She was laughing, spinning around with her arms out. And next to her, arm around her waist, was a man I'd never seen before. The caption read, Paradise with my peace. She was in Hawaii, on vacation, with another man, while my son was dying. The nurse walked back in, saw my face, and stopped. Mrs. Cole, are you all right? I didn't answer. All I could do was stare at that screen, at Loretta's smiling face, at the man holding her like she was his. That's when something inside me shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Cold. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. And I made a decision. I need to tell you how we got here. How a woman like Loretta ended up married to my son in the first place. Because none of this makes sense unless you understand who Marcus was, and who I thought she was. Marcus was 12 when his daddy died. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. One day he was coaching Marcus's little league team, the next day he was gone. Just like that, I became everything. Mother, father, provider, protector. I worked myself to the bone to make sure that boy had a future. School cook during the day, courthouse cleaner at night. Some nights I'd come home at 2 in the morning, feet aching so bad I could barely stand, but I never complained. Not once. Because Marcus was my purpose. My reason for breathing. He made me proud. Got into Howard University on a scholarship. Studied hard, graduated with honors, landed a government contractor job in D.C. making more money than I'd ever seen in my life. He called me every Sunday without fail. Sent me money I never asked for. Visited every Thanksgiving and Christmas. Then he met Loretta. Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be nothing like they seemed? Drop a like if you know that feeling, because I should have seen it coming. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Smooth brown skin, perfect smile, always dressed like she stepped out of a magazine. She came from Atlanta, worked in marketing or PR or something fancy like that. When Marcus first brought her home, she was all sweetness and light. Called me Miss Ruthon in that sugary voice. Complimented my cooking. Asked about my church. I wanted to like her. I really did. But something felt off. It was small things at first. The way she'd check her phone while I was talking. How she'd steer Marcus away whenever we got too deep in conversation. The subtle comments about old-fashioned thinking whenever I shared advice. But Marcus loved her. I could see it in his eyes. So I kept my mouth shut and prayed I was wrong. They got married 2 years later. Small ceremony in Atlanta. I wasn't part of the planning. Loretta said they wanted something intimate and modern. I smiled and showed up anyway, wearing my Sunday best, pretending my heart wasn't breaking a little. After the wedding, things changed fast. Marcus's calls went from every Sunday to every other Sunday. Then once a month. Then only on holidays. When I asked why, he'd say, "We're just busy, Mama. Work's been crazy." But I could hear something in his voice. Something tired. Something defeated. Loretta always had an excuse. Marcus is traveling. We have plans. Maybe next time, Miss Ruthon. Her voice stayed sweet, but her eyes stayed cold. I remember one Thanksgiving, the last time they came to Alabama. We were sitting at the table, passing dishes, and I asked Marcus about his job. He started telling me about a project he was excited about, and Loretta cut him off mid-sentence. "Baby, your mama doesn't need all those boring details," she said with a laugh. Then she turned to me. "You know how these men get when they talk shop. Sometimes family just drains their ambition if we're not careful." The table went quiet. Marcus looked down at his plate. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I'd been too polite to name before. She wasn't just pulling him away from me. She was erasing me from his life, piece by piece. I smiled and changed the subject, but that sentence echoed in my head for months. Drains their ambition. Like I was some kind of burden. Like the woman who raised him alone, who sacrificed everything, was now just dead weight. After that visit, the calls stopped almost completely. I'd text, and he'd reply hours later with short answers. "I'm good, Mama. Work's fine. Love you." No depth. No real conversation. It was like talking to a stranger wearing my son's name. I told myself he was just adjusting to married life. That things would get better. But deep down I knew. I didn't realize then, she was already draining my son's soul. That Thursday morning, I woke up with a weight sitting square on my chest. Not pain exactly, but pressure. Like something was pressing down on me, trying to tell me something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, and I couldn't shake it. Couldn't explain it. Couldn't ignore it. My grandmother used to call it the knowing. That feeling deep in your gut when something's wrong with someone you love, even if they're 1,000 miles away. I got up, made coffee, tried to go about my day. But every few minutes, that heaviness came back. I checked my phone, no missed calls, no texts. I called Marcus. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I told myself he was probably in a meeting. But the feeling didn't go away. It got stronger. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood in my kitchen, hands shaking, and I heard my own voice say out loud, "Go to DC." Just like that. Clear as day. Not a suggestion. A command. I didn't call Marcus first. Didn't call Loretta. Didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just packed a small suitcase, 2 outfits, my Bible, some toiletries, and booked the first flight I could find. Cost me $400 I didn't really have, but I didn't care. Something told me my son needed me. And I've learned over the years, when your spirit screams that loud, you listen. Would you trust your instincts if something felt off? Comment yes if you would have done the same, because what I found when I got there still haunts me. The flight felt like the longest 3 hours of my life. I kept trying Marcus's phone. No answer. Texted him. Nothing. My stomach twisted tighter with every mile. When I landed at Reagan National, I grabbed a cab straight to their townhouse in Georgetown. Fancy neighborhood. Tree-lined streets. The kind of place I never imagined my son living. I felt out of place just being there. The cab pulled up, and I paid the driver with trembling hands. I walked up to the front door, my suitcase dragging behind me. The first thing I noticed was the mail. Piled up by the door, spilling out of the slot. Newspapers still wrapped in plastic, stacked on the porch. Nobody had been home in days. My heart started hammering. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again, harder. Still nothing. I tried the doorbell. Silence. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "Miss Cole? Is that you?" I turned around. It was Mrs. Patterson, the neighbor from next door. She was standing on her porch, hand shielding her eyes from the sun, looking at me like she'd seen a ghost. "Yes, it's me," I said, walking over. "I'm looking for Marcus. Have you seen him?" Her face changed. Concern flickered across it. "Oh, honey. Aren't you supposed to be up here already? I thought you'd come with the ambulance." The world tilted. Ambulance. She nodded, stepping down from her porch. "Yes. 4 days ago. They rushed him out on a stretcher. Heart attack, I think someone said. I just assumed you were already here. You're his mother." My knees buckled. I grabbed the railing of her porch to steady myself. 4 days. Yes. Wednesday morning. I heard the sirens, looked out, and saw them loading him into the ambulance. His wife left right after in her car. I haven't seen her since. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My baby had been in the hospital for 4 days and nobody told me. Nobody called. Nobody thought to let his mother know her son was dying. Which hospital? I managed to choke out. St. George's Medical Center. It's about 15 minutes from here. I didn't even thank her. I just turned, dragged my suitcase back down the steps, and flagged down another cab. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely open the door. "St. George's Medical Center," I told the driver. "And please hurry." He must have heard something in my voice because he didn't ask questions. Just drove. I sat in that back seat, gripping my purse, praying out loud. Please, God. Please don't take my boy. Please let me get there in time. Please. The cab pulled up to the emergency entrance, and I threw cash at the driver without waiting for change. I ran inside, 72 years old, and I ran like I was 20. The front desk nurse looked up as I stumbled toward her, breathless, tears already streaming. I need to see my son. Marcus Cole. Please. Where is he? The nurse typed something into her computer, her face neutral, professional. Too calm for what I was feeling. She looked up at me, and I saw her eyebrows pull together slightly. You're his mother? She asked. Yes, I said, barely able to get the word out. I'm Ruthon Cole. Marcus is my son. Where is he? She glanced back at the screen, then at me again. You're not listed as his emergency contact. Just his wife, Loretta Cole. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not listed. My own son, and I wasn't even listed. I don't care what that screen says, I said, my voice shaking. I am his mother. I've been his mother for 34 years. Now where is my son? The nurse's face softened. Maybe she heard the desperation. Maybe she had kids of her own. She nodded. He's in the ICU. 4th floor. Room 427. I didn't wait for anything else. I turned and ran toward the elevators, my suitcase forgotten by the desk. The elevator took forever. I watched the numbers light up, 1, 2, 3, each second stretching like hours. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, I nearly knocked over a doctor rushing past. I found the ICU nurse's station and a different nurse pointed me down the hall. Room 427. But ma'am, he's in critical. I didn't hear the rest. I was already moving. If your heart broke for me right here, click that like button, because this is where quiet justice begins. When I reached his room, I stopped in the doorway. And that's when I saw him. That's when everything I'd been holding together fell apart. My son. My baby. Lying there with tubes down his throat, IVs in both arms, monitors beeping all around him. His skin was gray. His lips were dry and cracked. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 days. I walked in slowly, my legs shaking so bad I thought I'd collapse. I pulled a chair up next to his bed and took his hand. It was cold. Limp. Like holding something that wasn't quite alive anymore. Mama's here, baby, I whispered, tears falling onto the white hospital sheets. Mama's here now. I'm so sorry I didn't come sooner. I'm so sorry. He didn't move. Didn't open his eyes. Just lay there, breathing with the help of machines. A doctor walked in a few minutes later. Same man from earlier, Dr. Patel. He had a tablet in his hand and exhaustion written all over his face. Mrs. Cole, he said gently. I'm glad you're here. What happened to him? I asked, not looking away from Marcus. Massive cardiac arrest. He collapsed at home Wednesday morning. A neighbor heard a noise and called 911. By the time paramedics arrived, he'd been down for several minutes. They got his heart started again, but he's been unconscious ever since. We're monitoring for brain damage and additional cardiac events. Each word felt like a punch. Will he wake up? We don't know yet. The next 48 to 72 hours are critical. I nodded, biting my lip to keep from breaking down completely. Then I asked the question burning in my throat. Where's his wife? Dr. Patel looked uncomfortable. He glanced at his tablet, then back at me. We've been trying to reach her since Wednesday. Multiple calls, emails. She hasn't responded. We were told she'd left town, but we don't have any other information. She hasn't been here? My voice came out sharper than I meant. No, ma'am. Not once. Something inside me went cold. Ice cold. My son had been here, alone, fighting for his life, and his wife, the woman who promised to love him in sickness and health, was nowhere to be found. "Do you know where she went?" I asked. "No. We only have her cell number on file. It goes straight to voicemail." I thanked him and he left, closing the door softly behind him. I sat there holding Marcus's hand, my mind spinning. None of this made sense. Even if she'd been upset with him, even if they'd been fighting, you don't just disappear when your husband has a heart attack. Unless you're running toward something else. I pulled out my phone with my free hand and dialed Loretta's number. It rang once, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. Third time, voicemail again. My hands were shaking with anger now, not fear. I opened Facebook, something I barely used, but I knew Loretta lived on it. Always posting her life, her outfits, her brunch dates. I went to her profile. The last post was from 6 hours ago. And there she was. Standing on a beach somewhere tropical. Turquoise water behind her. A pink drink in her hand. Hair blowing in the wind. Smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. And next to her, with his arm wrapped around her waist, was a man. Tall, dark-skinned, laughing at something she'd said. The caption read, "Paradise with my peace." I stared at that screen until my vision blurred. Read the caption again. Looked at the man's face. Looked at her smile. My son was dying. And she was on vacation. With another man. Living her best life while Marcus fought for his next breath. The nurse knocked softly and came back in. She took one look at my face and stopped. "Mrs. Cole, are you all right?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in that moment, something shifted inside me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't hysterical. It was quiet. Cold. The kind of calm that comes right before a hurricane tears through everything in its path. I looked at Marcus, still unconscious. Then I looked back at my phone. At Loretta's smiling face. And I whispered, low and steady, "Then she's already dead to me." I stepped outside Marcus's room because I couldn't breathe in there anymore. The walls felt like they were closing in, and if I stayed one more second staring at those machines keeping my boy alive, I was going to lose it completely. I walked to the family waiting area at the end of the hall. Empty except for a coffee machine that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since 1995. I sat down in one of those uncomfortable plastic chairs and pulled out my phone again. I opened that post. Stared at it. Read the comments underneath. People writing things like, "You look amazing," and "Living your best life, Queen," and "He's a lucky man." They had no idea. None of them knew that while she was clinking glasses on some beach, her husband was 3,000 miles away, barely clinging to life. I clicked on the location tag. Maui, Hawaii. Posted 6 hours ago, which meant she was still there. Still on vacation. Still pretending her whole life back home didn't exist. Would you have done what I did next? Subscribe now, because you're not ready for what happened next. My hands stopped shaking. My breathing steadied. And something cold and clear settled over me like a blanket. See, I've lived 72 years on this earth. I've buried 2 brothers, 1 husband, and more dreams than I care to count. I've worked jobs that broke my back and smiled through disrespect that should have broken my spirit. I've been poor, tired, overlooked, and underestimated more times than I can remember. But I've never been stupid. And I've never been weak. People mistake kindness for weakness all the time. They think just because you're polite, just because you go to church and say your prayers and don't cause a scene, that you're soft. That you'll just take whatever they dish out and say thank you with a smile. Loretta made that mistake. She thought I was just some old woman from Alabama who'd stay in her lane and mind her business. She thought that because I didn't have her degrees or her big city job or her designer bags, I didn't have power. She was wrong. I opened my contacts and scrolled until I found the name I needed, Diana. My cousin. Retired banker who'd worked 30 years at a regional bank before they forced her out with a buyout package. Diana knew money, knew accounts, knew how things worked behind the scenes. More importantly, Diana owed me. I'd co-signed her daughter's student loans when nobody else would. Helped her through her divorce when her ex tried to hide assets. We had history. Real history. The kind you can call on when you need something done quietly. I pressed call. She picked up on the second ring. Ruthon? Girl, I haven't heard from you in months. What's going on? Diana, I said, my voice steady. I need your help. And I need it now. I told her everything. About Marcus. About the heart attack. About Loretta being in Hawaii with another man while my son fought for his life. About the post. About how she hadn't called, hadn't visited, hadn't even bothered to check if her husband was alive. Diana was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "That evil woman. What do you need me to do?" Marcus made me his secondary on some of his accounts years ago, I said. Before he got married. I need to know what's still in my name. What I have access to. What can be moved or frozen. Diana was quiet again, but I could hear her mind working. When did he make you secondary? About 7 years ago. He said it was just in case something happened. Emergency access. And you never removed yourself after he got married? No. He never asked me to. I don't think he even remembered. And I'm sure Loretta doesn't know. Diana exhaled slowly. All right. Give me his full name, date of birth, and social. And any account numbers you might have. I rattled off everything I could remember. Diana typed in the background, clicking keys, humming occasionally. Ruthon, she said after a few minutes. If these accounts are joint with his wife, I can't just freeze them without cause. But if you're listed as secondary on anything that's solely his, or anything that predates the marriage, we might have options. What kind of options? Legal ones. Quiet ones. The kind that don't make noise but get the job done. Let me make some calls. I'll have answers by tonight. Diana, I said, I need this done right. I don't want anything that's going to come back on Marcus. But I want her to feel what it's like to lose access to everything she thinks she controls. Diana's voice went cold. Say no more. I'll call you back in 3 hours. She hung up, and I sat there staring at my phone. My heart was still pounding, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from something else. Something sharper. Justice. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that screams and breaks things. The quiet kind. The kind that moves like water, slow, steady, and impossible to stop once it starts. I walked back to Marcus's room and sat down next to him again. Took his hand. Stroked his forehead. Prayed over him like I'd done 1,000 times when he was a boy. You're going to be okay, baby, I whispered. Mama's got you. And I'm going to make sure nobody ever hurts you again. The monitor beeped steadily. His chest rose and fell. And somewhere across the ocean, Loretta's phone probably buzzed with another like on her Paradise post. She had no idea what was coming. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Diana. It's done, she said simply. What's done? Everything you asked for. I'll explain the details later, but here's what you need to know. Marcus had 3 accounts that predate his marriage. A savings account, an investment account, and a trust his father left him that matured when he turned 30. You're listed as co-owner on 2 of them and secondary on the trust. Loretta has access to the joint checking and 1 credit card. Everything else? It's locked down as of 10 minutes ago. My breath caught. Locked down how? Frozen pending review of account activity due to suspected fraud. It's a legal hold. She can't touch a dime until it's cleared, and clearing it requires your signature since you're co-owner. Could take weeks. Months if you drag your feet. I closed my eyes. How much are we talking about? Combined? About $230,000. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief exactly. Something colder. And her accounts? Her personal accounts are untouched. But anything tied to Marcus? Gone. And that includes the joint credit card. I flagged it for unusual activity. It'll decline the next time she tries to use it. When will that happen? Diana laughed, but there was no humor in it. Probably already has. Those holds went into effect 20 minutes ago. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at my son. Thank you, Diana. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly when she finds out. Are you ready for that? I thought about that post. About her smiling face. About the man with his arm around her. About my son lying here alone, tubes in his throat, fighting for every breath. Let it get ugly, I said quietly. She earned it. Diana laughed again, softer this time. That's my girl. Call me if you need anything else. We hung up, and I sat there in the dim hospital room, holding my son's cold hand. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was turning pink and orange through the window. And somewhere in Hawaii, Loretta's perfect vacation was about to come crashing down. I stayed in that hospital room all night, watching Marcus breathe. Every beep of the monitor, every slight movement of his chest. I watched it all like my attention alone could keep him tethered to this world. Around midnight, a nurse came in to check his vitals. She was kind, didn't say much, just did her job and left me alone with my thoughts. Those thoughts were dark. Angry. But also crystal clear. Diana had done her part. Now the rest was up to time. And patience. Two things I'd learned plenty about over 72 years of living. I thought about calling Loretta myself. Confronting her. Screaming at her through the phone about what kind of monster leaves their dying husband to go play in the ocean with another man. But that would have been the old way. The loud way. And loud doesn't always win. Sometimes the quietest move is the deadliest one. If you believe karma always comes around, hit that like button, because it's about to hit hard. Morning came slow. The sun crept through the blinds, painting Marcus's face in soft light. He looked a little less gray. A little less like death. Or maybe I was just desperate to see improvement. Dr. Patel came in around 7. He checked the monitors, made some notes, then looked at me with something close to sympathy. Any change? I asked. His vitals are stable. That's good. We're still monitoring closely, but he's holding on. That's what matters right now. And his wife? Did she ever call back? Dr. Patel shook his head. No. We've stopped trying. You're here now, and you're listed on his older medical records as next of kin. That's enough for us. I nodded. Good. Let her stay in her paradise. Let her think everything's fine. Around noon, I went down to the cafeteria to force myself to eat something. My phone buzzed while I was picking at a sad-looking salad. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Is this Ruton Cole? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Yes. Who's this? This is Monica from First Atlantic Bank. We're calling regarding some accounts associated with Marcus Cole. There's been unusual activity flagged, and we need verification before we can proceed with any transactions. I almost smiled. What kind of unusual activity? We're not at liberty to discuss details over the phone, but someone attempted to make a large withdrawal this morning and the account has been frozen pending review. Since you're listed as co-owner, we need your authorization to release the hold. How large? $15,000. Now I did smile. No. Don't release it. Keep it frozen. I'll come in when I can to sort it out. There was a pause. Ma'am, the person who attempted the withdrawal was quite insistent. She said it was an emergency. I'm sure she did. Keep it frozen. Understood. We'll send you the paperwork. I hung up and sat there, salad forgotten. So she tried to pull money. Probably realized her cards weren't working. Probably starting to panic. Good. I went back upstairs, and that's when I saw her. Loretta was standing outside Marcus's room, still in vacation clothes, shorts, a loose tank top, sandals. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, sunglasses pushed up on her head. She had her phone pressed to her ear, and she was pacing, talking fast. I don't care what the system says, I need access to that account now. Yes, I'm his wife. Yes, I have documentation. What do you mean it's frozen? She hadn't seen me yet. I stood there at the end of the hall, watching her unravel. She hung up, cursed under her breath, then dialed another number. Baby, I'm telling you something's wrong. All the accounts are locked. I can't get money out of anything. I don't know what happened, but, she paused listening. Her face changed. Hardened. What do you mean you can't help me right now? We're supposed to be, she stopped. Listened again. Then her voice went cold. Oh. So that's how it is. Yeah. Yeah, I see. Goodbye. She hung up and stood there, staring at her phone like it had just betrayed her. That's when I started walking toward her. She looked up, saw me, and froze. For just a second, I saw fear flicker across her face. Then she covered it with anger. You, she said, voice shaking. What are you doing here? Visiting my son, I said calmly. What are you doing here? I'm his wife. I have every right to be here. Interesting. You didn't seem to think that 4 days ago when he was brought in dying. Her jaw tightened. I was dealing with something. I know. I saw the pictures. Maui looks beautiful this time of year. Her face went pale. Then red. You don't know what you're talking about. I know enough. I know my son almost died alone while you were on a beach with another man. I know you didn't call, didn't visit, didn't even check if he was alive. She stepped closer, dropping her voice to a hiss. You need to stay out of my marriage. Your marriage. I almost laughed. You don't have a marriage. You have a bank account with a man attached to it. Her eyes narrowed. What did you do? I don't know what you mean. Don't play games with me, old woman. All our accounts are frozen. I can't access anything. My cards don't work. What did you do? I looked at her, really looked at her. Saw the panic underneath the anger. Saw the desperation starting to crack through. I didn't do anything, I said quietly. I just made sure you couldn't do anything either. She lunged at me, hands out, face twisted. But a nurse grabbed her arm before she could reach me. Ma'am, you need to calm down or security will escort you out. Loretta jerked her arm free, breathing hard. This isn't over. I'll sue you. I'll get lawyers. You can't just. Actually, I said, still calm, I can. Marcus made me co-owner on his accounts years ago. Long before you came into the picture. Everything that matters. I control it now. And you don't get a single dime until I say so. Her face went white. Then she screamed, actually screamed, You can't do this. Security showed up then. 2 guards, both looking tired like this wasn't their first drama of the day. They took Loretta by the arms, and she fought them, yelling the whole way down the hall. I'm his wife. You can't throw me out. I'll sue all of you. That old witch can't do this. Her voice faded as they dragged her into the elevator. The nurse looked at me, eyebrows raised. You okay, Mrs. Cole? I nodded. I'm fine. Thank you. She patted my arm and walked away, shaking her head. I went back into Marcus's room and sat down. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I just faced her down. Watched her lose control. Watched her realize she had nothing. And it felt right. Cold, yes. But right. I took Marcus's hand again and whispered, Don't worry, baby. Mama's got this. Outside, the afternoon sun blazed. And somewhere out there, Loretta was learning what it felt like to lose everything that never really belonged to her in the first place. I didn't sleep that night either. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Loretta's face, twisted, furious, desperate. Every time I started to drift off, a monitor would beep or a nurse would come in, and I'd jolt awake, checking to make sure Marcus was still breathing. He was. Steady. Stable. Still unconscious, but holding on. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Text from Diana. Just got a call from someone claiming to be Marcus's wife. She wants to know how to unfreeze the accounts. I told her she needs to speak with you. Thought you should know. I texted back, let her call. I won't answer. Diana sent back a thumbs up emoji. I set my phone down and stared at Marcus. Your wife's losing her mind, baby, I whispered. And honestly, she deserves every second of it. The morning came with another visit from Dr. Patel. He examined Marcus, checked the machines, made his notes. When he was done, he turned to me. Mrs. Cole, I have to say, your son is incredibly lucky you came when you did. Many patients in his condition don't have anyone advocating for them. It makes a difference. He's my son, I said simply. Where else would I be? Dr. Patel nodded, something sad in his eyes. I wish more families felt that way. Would you have faced her like this? Comment justice served if you felt that power, because what happened next made her completely unravel. The call came around 10 in the morning. Not to me, to the hospital. The nurse at the desk paged me over the intercom. Mrs. Cole, you have a visitor at the front desk. My stomach tightened. I knew who it was. I took my time walking down. Let her wait. When I got there, Loretta was standing by the elevators, arms crossed, face hard. She'd changed clothes, jeans and a blazer now, like she was trying to look professional. Trying to look in control. But her eyes gave her away. Red-rimmed. Tired. Scared. We need to talk, she said, voice flat. No, we don't. Ruthan, please. She said my name like it hurt. I know you're angry. I get it. But you can't just freeze me out of everything. That's my money too. Is it? I asked. Because from what I understand, everything that's frozen belonged to Marcus before you married him. You never had access to it in the first place. Her jaw clenched. That's not how marriage works. What's his is mine. Not in this case. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Look, I made a mistake. I admit that. I shouldn't have left when I did. But I'm back now. I want to make this right. Make it right. I stared at her. You left my son to die so you could play house with another man. And now that your money's cut off and your lover's gone, you want to make it right. Her face flushed. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Because I saw the pictures, Loretta. I saw you smiling on that beach while machines were breathing for my son. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. Marcus and I have been having problems. He's been distant, always working, never home. I felt alone. I needed space to think. So you went to Hawaii with another man and didn't tell anyone where you were and ignored every call from the hospital. I didn't know he was. Don't, I cut her off. Don't you dare stand here and lie to me. You knew. The hospital called you. Multiple times. You saw those calls and you ignored them because you didn't care. Tears welled up in her eyes. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. I was scared, okay? I didn't know what to do. I panicked. You panicked, so you went on vacation? I know how it looks. It looks exactly like what it is. You're a selfish, cold-hearted woman who married my son for his money and his status, and the second things got hard you ran. And now that the money's gone, you came crawling back. Her tears dried up fast. The mask slipped. Fine. You want to play it that way? I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight you for every cent. We'll see what a judge says about you stealing from your son's wife. Go ahead, I said calmly. Get your lawyer. Explain to them why you abandoned your husband during a medical emergency. Explain the Hawaii trip. Explain the man in the photos. Let's see how sympathetic a judge is. Her face went white. She hadn't thought that far ahead. Hadn't realized that her actions had consequences she couldn't charm or manipulate her way out of. You can't do this, she whispered, but there was no power behind it anymore. Just desperation. I already did. She stood there, shaking, with anger or fear, I didn't know. Didn't care. Then she turned and walked toward the exit, pulling out her phone, dialing frantically. I watched her push through the doors and disappear into the parking lot. The desk nurse looked at me, eyebrows raised. That was intense. Yes, I said. It was. I went back upstairs, feeling lighter somehow. Like I'd shed something heavy I'd been carrying for years. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the weight of trying to be polite when someone was hurting my child. When I got back to Marcus's room, I sat down and took his hand. She's gone, baby, I whispered. And she's not coming back. Mama made sure of that. The monitors beeped. His chest rose and fell. And for the first time in days, I felt something close to peace. That evening, Diana called again. You're not going to believe this. Try me. Loretta tried to file an emergency motion to unfreeze the accounts. Her lawyer called the bank. The bank called me. I told them everything, the timeline, the Hawaii trip, the fact that she wasn't even in the state when Marcus collapsed. Her lawyer dropped her. I closed my eyes. Good. Ruton, she's done. She has no access, no lawyer, and from what I'm hearing, the man she went to Hawaii with has blocked her number. She's completely alone. I should have felt triumphant. Maybe I did, a little. But mostly I just felt tired. Thank you, Diana. For everything. Anytime, cousin. That's what family does. We hung up, and I sat there in the dim hospital room, watching the sun set through the window. Loretta had built her whole life on appearances. On charm. On making people think she was something she wasn't. And the second things got hard, the second the money stopped flowing, it all fell apart. Quiet justice doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It just waits for the truth to do what truth always does, expose everything hiding in the shadows. That night was the longest one yet. Not because anything bad happened. Marcus's vitals stayed steady, the machines kept beeping their rhythm, the nurses came and went like clockwork. It was long because I finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The fear. The anger. The heartbreak of seeing my son like this. The rage at a woman who'd vowed to love him and then abandoned him when he needed her most. I sat in that chair, holding Marcus's hand, and I cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet tears running down my face while I talked to him. You remember when you were 7 and you broke your arm falling out of that tree? I whispered. You were crying so hard, and I held you just like this all the way to the hospital. You kept saying, "Mama, don't let go." And I told you I never would. His hand stayed limp in mine, but I kept talking anyway. You remember when your daddy died and you said you had to be the man of the house now? You were 12 years old, baby. 12. And I told you that you didn't have to be anything except my son. That I'd take care of us. That we'd be okay. Would you forgive if you were Rutan? Hit like if her strength inspires you, because what happened next broke me and healed me at the same time. I told him about his first day of college. How proud I was. How scared. How I drove back to Alabama crying the whole way because my baby was grown and gone and I didn't know who I was without him needing me. But you called every Sunday, I said, smiling through tears. Every single Sunday for years. Until you met her. And then the calls stopped. And I lost you a little bit at a time. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I should have fought harder. Should have said something. But I thought you were happy. Thought maybe I was just being a jealous old woman who couldn't let go. The night stretched on. I dozed in the chair, my head resting on the edge of his bed, my hand still holding his. Somewhere around 4 in the morning, I felt it. A squeeze. Light. Barely there. But real. I jerked awake, staring at his hand in mine. Marcus. Nothing. I waited, heart pounding. Then it came again, a weak squeeze of my fingers. Baby, can you hear me? My voice cracked. His eyelids fluttered. Once. Twice. Then slowly, painfully, they opened. His eyes were unfocused, confused, but they were open. Mama. His voice was barely a whisper, raw from the breathing tube they'd removed the day before. I stood up so fast the chair fell over. Yes, baby. Yes, it's Mama. I'm right here. He blinked slowly, trying to focus. Where? You're in the hospital. You had a heart attack. But you're okay. You're going to be okay. His eyes moved around the room, taking in the machines, the 4 lines, the monitors. Then they came back to me. How long? 5 days. But don't worry about that now. Just rest. He tried to speak again, but I shushed him gently. Don't talk, baby. Save your strength. But he kept trying, forcing the words out. Where's Loretta? My chest tightened. Of course that was his first question. Even now, even after everything, he was thinking about her. I sat back down, took his hand again. She's not here. Why? I looked at him, really looked at him. At the confusion in his eyes. The weakness in his body. The trust on his face. And I made a choice. She was away when it happened, I said carefully. But don't worry about her right now. You need to focus on getting better. He stared at me for a long moment. Even in his weakened state, he knew I wasn't telling him everything. But he was too tired to push. His eyes drifted closed again. Stay, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere, baby. Mama's right here. He squeezed my hand once more, then slipped back into sleep. Real sleep this time, not the unconscious void he'd been trapped in. I pressed the call button, and within minutes, nurses and doctors filled the room. They checked him, asked questions, made notes. Dr. Patel showed up 20 minutes later, even though it was barely dawn. "This is very good news," he said, examining Marcus. "He's responsive. That's huge. We'll need to run more tests, but this is the best sign we could have hoped for." "Will he be okay?" I asked. "Too early to say for certain. But he's fighting. And that matters more than you know." After everyone left, I sat back down and just watched him sleep. Real sleep. Peaceful sleep. The kind where his chest rose and fell on its own, no machines forcing air into his lungs. Hours passed. The sun came up. Light filled the room. And Marcus woke again, more alert this time. "Mama," he said, voice still rough but stronger. "I'm here." He looked around again, then back at me. "Tell me the truth. Where's Loretta?" I took a breath. This was the moment. I could lie. Could protect him a little longer. But he deserved the truth. "She was in Hawaii," I said quietly. "When you collapsed. She didn't come to the hospital. Didn't call. I found out when I flew up here to check on you." His face didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Understanding. Resignation. Like he'd known, deep down, but hadn't wanted to admit it. "With someone else?" he asked. "Yes." A single tear slid down his cheek. "I knew. I think I knew for a while." "Oh, baby." I just didn't want to believe it. He closed his eyes, more tears leaking out. "I loved her, Mama. I really did." "I know, sweetheart. I know." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What did you do?" I paused. "What do you mean?" "I know you, Mama. I know that look. You did something." I smiled faintly. "I made sure she couldn't hurt you anymore." He looked at me, really looked, and I saw something flicker across his face. Not anger. Not even surprise. Relief. "Thank you," he whispered. "You don't have to thank me. I'm your mother. It's what I do." He squeezed my hand again, stronger this time. "You saved me twice." "No," I said softly. "God saved you. I just made sure the devil didn't get your money." For the first time in days, he smiled. It was weak, tired, but real. And in that moment, I knew everything was going to be okay. The hospital released Marcus 2 weeks later. He was weak, still healing, but the doctors said he could continue his recovery at home with proper care. There was just one problem. He didn't want to go back to that townhouse in Georgetown. Didn't want to see the place where he'd collapsed. Where he'd almost died. Where his wife had left him to rot. "Come home with me," I said. "Back to Alabama. Stay as long as you need." He didn't argue. Maybe he was too tired. Maybe he just wanted his mama. Either way, we flew back together, him in a wheelchair at the airport, me pushing him and thanking God with every step that I still had my son. The house looked the same as it always had, small, old, but clean and full of love. I got Marcus settled in his old bedroom, the one he'd slept in as a boy. He looked around at the posters still on the walls, the trophies on the shelf, and something in his face softened. "I forgot how much I missed this place," he said. "It never stopped being home," I told him. Comment below, what's the best justice, revenge or peace? Because what happened next taught me the difference. Over the next few days, Marcus rested. Slept. Ate the food I cooked. Sat on the porch watching the sun set over the magnolia trees. We didn't talk much about Loretta. Didn't need to. The silence said enough. Then one evening, while I was making dinner, my phone buzzed. Email notification. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was from Loretta. The subject line read, "Please read this." I stared at it for a long moment, my finger hovering over the delete button. Then curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The email was long, rambling, full of apologies and excuses and justifications that contradicted each other. She said she was sorry, said she'd made a mistake, said she loved Marcus and wanted another chance, said she'd lost her apartment because she couldn't pay rent, said her job had put her on leave for personal matters, said the man she'd gone to Hawaii with had disappeared the second things got hard. She said she had nothing left. No money. No place to live. No one to turn to. She begged me to unfreeze the accounts. Begged me to talk to Marcus. Begged me to give her another chance. At the end, she wrote, "I know you hate me, but please don't let me end up on the street. I made a mistake, but I don't deserve this." I read it twice. Then I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling absolutely nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. No pity. Nothing. She'd built her whole life on using people. On taking what she wanted and disappearing when things got hard. And now that she had no one left to use, she expected mercy from the woman whose son she'd abandoned. I thought about responding. Thought about telling her exactly what I thought of her crocodile tears and manipulative words. But what would that accomplish? She wouldn't learn. Wouldn't change. Would just find someone else to latch onto and do it all over again. So I did something better. I hit delete. Didn't reply. Didn't acknowledge it. Just erased her from my inbox like she'd tried to erase Marcus from her life. Marcus came into the kitchen a few minutes later, moving slowly but steady. "You okay, Mama? You look upset." "I'm fine, baby. Just deleting some junk mail." He nodded and sat down at the table. "Smells good. What are you making?" "Your favorite. Fried chicken and mac and cheese." He smiled, and it was the most genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. We ate dinner together, just the two of us, talking about nothing important. The weather. The neighbors. What flowers I should plant in the garden next spring. Normal things. Safe things. After dinner, we sat on the porch together. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marcus stared out at it, quiet. "Mama," he said finally, "I know what you did." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "The accounts. The freeze. Diana called me yesterday. Told me everything." I waited, not sure what to say. He turned to look at me. "Thank you." "You're not angry?" "Angry." He shook his head. "Mama, you saved my life. Twice. Once by coming to find me. And again by making sure she couldn't destroy what's left. I just did what any mother would do." "No," he said firmly. "Most mothers would have let me figure it out on my own. Would have said it's not their place to interfere. You didn't. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself." Tears pricked my eyes. "You're my son. I'll always fight for you." He reached over and took my hand, the same way I'd held his in that hospital bed. "I know. And I also know why you did it the way you did. Quiet. Legal. Clean. That's harder than just screaming and fighting. Sometimes the quietest move is the loudest message." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "What do I do now?" "Now? You heal. You rest. You remember who you are without her. And when you're ready, you figure out what comes next. And if she keeps reaching out, then you ignore her. Just like I did." He smiled faintly. "You deleted her email, didn't you?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." He laughed, actually laughed, and it was the best sound I'd heard in months. We sat there in silence, watching the last of the sun disappear behind the trees. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt at peace. Loretta had lost everything she'd stolen. Marcus was healing. And quiet justice had done exactly what it was supposed to do, restore balance without becoming the villain. Months passed. Spring turned to summer. Marcus got stronger every day. He started taking walks in the morning, helping me in the garden, even talking about what he might do next with his career. He'd called his job, explained the situation, and they'd put him on extended medical leave with full benefits. Good people, that company. They valued him. Loretta never reached out again after that email. I assumed she'd moved on, found someone else to leech off of. Or maybe she'd finally learned her lesson. Either way, it didn't matter. She was gone from our lives, and that was enough. One evening in late July, Marcus and I were sitting on the porch again. It had become our routine. Dinner, then the porch, watching the world slow down as the sun set. He turned to me, and I saw something different in his eyes. Peace. Real peace. Mama, he said, I've been thinking. About everything. About what happened. About the choices I made. About Loretta. I waited, letting him work through it. I spent so long trying to make her happy, he continued. Trying to be what she wanted. Trying to prove I was enough. And I lost myself in the process. Lost you too for a while. You never lost me, baby. I was always here. I know. But I stopped coming around. Stopped calling. I let her convince me that moving forward meant leaving my past behind. That you were holding me back. He shook his head. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were in love. People do foolish things when they're in love. Maybe. But I should have seen it. Should have known she didn't really care about me. Just what I could give her. Sometimes we don't want to see the truth because it hurts too much. He nodded slowly. You knew, didn't you? From the beginning. I suspected. But I didn't know for sure. And even if I had, I couldn't force you to see it. You had to figure it out on your own. And when I finally did, you were there. Ready to catch me. Always. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Mama, I need to tell you something. What is it? I filed for divorce. Officially. Last week. I looked at him, surprised but not shocked. How do you feel about that? Relieved. Sad. Angry. All of it at once. He sighed. I loved her. Or I thought I did. But love isn't supposed to hurt like that. Love isn't supposed to make you small. No, it's not. You loved Daddy. I remember. And he loved you. It was different. Real. It was, I agreed. But it wasn't perfect. No love is. What made it work was that we chose each other every day. Even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. Loretta never chose me. Not really. She chose what I could give her. Then you're better off without her. He nodded, staring out at the darkening sky. I know. I just wish I'd figured it out sooner. Everything happens when it's supposed to. You're here now. You're healing. That's what matters. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Marcus turned to me, his eyes serious. Mama, I know what you did. The accounts. The freeze. Everything. We've talked about this. I know. But I need to say it again. Thank you. For protecting me. For fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. For not letting her destroy everything I'd worked for. You're my son. I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat. I know you would. He smiled, that same smile from when he was a boy. You saved me twice. Once from dying. and once from living a lie. No, I said softly. God saved you. I just made sure the devil didn't get your money. He laughed, and it was full and genuine and beautiful. There it is. Mama's wisdom. It's not wisdom. It's just truth. We rocked in our chairs, the evening bugs starting their chorus, the air cooling as night settled in. And in that moment, everything felt complete. Not perfect. Not without scars. But whole. Mama. Yes, baby. What do you think happens to people like her? People who hurt others and never face real consequences. I thought about that. About Loretta, wherever she was. About all the people I'd known over the years who took and used and discarded others without a second thought. I think they end up alone, I said finally. Because eventually, people see them for what they are. And the loneliness they feel? That's a consequence all its own. You think she's lonely now? I know she is. Because people like her never learned how to love without taking. And you can't build a life on that. He nodded, understanding. So we just let her go? Let her live with what she did. We let her go because holding on to anger would only hurt us. Forgiveness isn't for her, Marcus. It's for you. So you can move forward without carrying that weight. I don't know if I can forgive her. You don't have to. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. You'll get there when you're ready. Or you won't. Either way is okay. He reached over and took my hand. How'd you get so wise? I'm 72 years old, baby. You live that long, you learn a few things. Like what? Like revenge destroys you. But justice heals. Like love without action is just words. Like quiet strength is louder than any scream. Like protecting the people you love is worth any cost. Subscribe and turn on notifications not to miss another story. Share your thoughts in the comments and inspire others with your own experiences of standing up for what's right. The stars were coming out now, pinpricks of light against the deepening purple sky. I looked up at them, thinking about everything we'd been through. Everything we'd survived. Marcus. Yeah, Mama. You're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to build a life that's real and good and true. With people who actually love you. You think so? I know so. He squeezed my hand. As long as I have you, I believe it. We sat there until full dark, just being together. Just breathing. Just grateful. And somewhere far away, in some city or town we'd never think about again, Loretta was learning what I'd known all along, that you can't build a life on lies and manipulation. That eventually, everyone runs out of people to use. That paradise built on betrayal always crumbles. But that wasn't my concern anymore. My concern was the man sitting next to me. My son. My purpose. My reason for fighting as hard as I did. Justice doesn't need applause. It doesn't need witnesses or validation. It just needs to be true. And the truth was simple. I'd protected my child from a predator dressed in wedding white. I'd done what any mother would do if they had the courage and the means. And I'd do it again without hesitation. Marcus leaned his head back against the rocking chair, his eyes closed, a small smile on his lips. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. The crickets sang. The breeze carried the scent of magnolias. And in that moment, under those stars, I knew we'd be all right. Not because the storm had passed. But because we'd learned how to stand in it together. How to protect each other. How to fight quietly when fighting loud would only cause more damage. Peace isn't silence in the face of evil. Peace is knowing you did what was right, even when it was hard. even when others wouldn't understand. Even when the world tells you to mind your business and stay in your lane. Sometimes love means stepping out of your lane. Sometimes it means becoming the storm that protects your family from worse weather. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Just delete the email, close the door, and let the wicked live with the emptiness they created. Marcus opened his eyes and looked at me. What are you thinking about? Nothing important, I said. Just grateful. For you. For this moment. For second chances. Me too, Mama. Me too. We rocked in silence, the way families do when words aren't needed. When presence is enough. When love doesn't have to announce itself because it's woven into every breath, every gesture, every choice. And as the night deepened around us, I thought about the lessons I'd learned through all of this. The ones I'd carry with me for whatever time I had left. Never let guilt silence your intuition. When your spirit tells you something's wrong, go see for yourself. I could have ignored that feeling. Could have told myself I was being paranoid or overprotective. But I listened. And listening saved my son's life. Love is not proven by words, but by presence in times of pain. Loretta said she loved Marcus. Said all the right things. But when he needed her most, she was nowhere to be found. Real love shows up. Real love stays. Real love fights. Quiet justice is not vengeance, it's restoration. I didn't freeze those accounts to hurt Loretta. I did it to protect Marcus. To make sure that when he woke up, he'd still have something to wake up to. That's not revenge. That's preservation. Sometimes doing nothing loud is the loudest justice of all. I could have screamed. Could have confronted her publicly, embarrassed her, destroyed her reputation. But what would that have accomplished? The quiet route was harder. Required more control. But it was also more effective. And it didn't make me into something I wasn't. Forgiveness is for you, not for them. I might never forgive Loretta for what she did. But I won't carry hatred for her either. Because hatred is heavy, and I'm too old to carry weight that isn't mine. She'll live with her choices. I'll live with mine. And that's enough. Marcus spoke again, pulling me from my thoughts. Mama, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think I'll ever trust someone again? Ever love someone again? I turned to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his face. The fear of opening his heart again only to have it broken. Yes, I said firmly. Because you're not broken, Marcus. You're healing. And there's a difference. Broken means beyond repair. Healing means becoming stronger in the places that were hurt. But what if I make the same mistake? What if I choose wrong again? Then you'll learn from it again. But you're wiser now. You know what real love looks like because you know what fake love looks like. You know the difference between someone who wants you and someone who wants what you have. He nodded slowly. And you'll be there? To tell me if I'm being stupid again. I smiled. Baby, I'll always be here. For as long as God lets me. And even after that, you'll hear my voice in your head telling you to trust your gut and watch for red flags. He laughed, that beautiful sound that meant my boy was coming back to himself. Yeah, I probably will. Good. Then I've done my job. We sat there until the mosquitoes got too bad and we had to go inside. Marcus went to his room, and I went to mine. But before I turned off my light, I knelt by my bed like I'd done every night since I was a child. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for the warning that told me to go to him. Thank you for keeping him alive until I got there. Thank you for giving me the strength to do what needed to be done. And thank you for bringing my boy home. I climbed into bed, pulled the quilt up to my chin, and closed my eyes. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. No nightmares. No worries. No fear. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you stood up when others would have sat down. From knowing you protected what mattered most. From knowing that love, real, sacrificial, fierce love, always wins in the end. Not because it's loud. Not because it demands attention. But because it endures. Because it shows up. Because it fights for what's right even when the cost is high. That's the kind of love I gave my son. The kind my mother gave me. The kind that spans generations and outlasts every storm. And that, more than any frozen account or deleted email or confrontation in a hospital hallway, is the real victory. Because at the end of the day, Loretta lost everything. And Marcus gained himself back. That's not revenge. That's restoration. That's not bitterness. That's justice. That's not silence. That's strength. And if I had to do it all over again, face her down, freeze those accounts, watch her world crumble, I wouldn't change a single thing. Because protecting your child isn't something you apologize for. It's something you do with your whole heart, your whole strength, your whole being. And when it's done right, you don't need anyone's approval. You just need to look your child in the eye and know you did right by them. Everything else is just noise. If this story touched your heart, don't leave without subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another story of courage, justice, and the power of a mother's love. Drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Ruthan's shoes, and share this with someone who needs to hear that sometimes, the quietest strength is the most powerful. Because in a world that celebrates loud revenge and dramatic confrontations, we need more stories about people who do the right thing quietly, who protect their families with wisdom instead of weapons, who understand that true justice doesn't need an audience, it just needs truth. Thank you for being part of this family. Thank you for listening. And remember, when your intuition tells you something's wrong, listen. When someone you love needs you, show up. And when evil tries to destroy what's good, stand firm. Not with anger, but with unshakable love and quiet, determined strength. That's how you win. Not by becoming what hurt you, but by remaining who you've always been. Someone who loves fiercely, protects courageously, and fights for what's right even when no one's watching. See you in the next story. And until then, keep standing up for what matters. God bless.